What's it like making a solo album when you're already in one of the world's biggest bands? Not easy, most would guess. In spring 2020, Ed O'Brien decided to release his first album as a solo artist. His band? Well, you might have heard of them.
Special, but I'm a creep.
Radiohead have sold over 30 million albums worldwide and are one of the most successful bands of their generation. They first met back in Oxfordshire, where they were students in Abingdon School. Other members of the band, Thom Yorke, Phil Selway, Johnny Greenwood, have all recorded solo albums. But until this spring, Ed had always decided against it. We caught up on Zoom, the video conferencing service, a week prior to the release of his debut album.
Hi Nadine.
Hi Ed, how are you?
You're all darkness. Have you got your camera on? You're just trying to deliberately unnerve me, right?
Who knows where we're going?
The way Ed tells it, making a solo album would only happen if it felt right artistically.
What I realised is one of the reasons why I hadn't made music before is because I just hadn't been truly inspired. And I suddenly, for whatever reason, inspiration came in the form of taking time out with my young family. We went and moved to Brazil and lived in a very rural situation on the edge of a farm, on the edge of the rainforest. And suddenly I had time out and I had time to get off the hamster wheel, living in London and all of that, and having young kids and being a hands-on dad and Radiohead. There was no time to do anything else. And suddenly it was almost like self-isolation. It was like taking time out in nature, and it was just like, and the dust settled and it was just like, I've got something I want to sing about here. There's a feeling here. I was inspired, and it was being in Brazil, but it was also things like going to Carnival. We went to Carnival. We went to Rio for Carnival, and being in the Samba Dome for 2 nights. And it is the most extraordinary show. At night, it's rhythm, melody, light, love, this huge dance. It's the greatest show on earth. And I really felt it. And I thought the feeling that I had there was a euphoria, and probably not too dissimilar to gospel, to being, it's the lifting of the spirit. It's very like, I have to say, it was like going to a U2 gig in 1985 for me. Like for a week after, I'm in this kind of, it was like going to, I hated church. Church was rubbish, but it was better than, that's church. That's religion.
I just call and he comes around, but for the first time, I feel love.
Speaking of U2, for the production of Ed's album Earth, he realised he wanted to work with Flood, the veteran British producer responsible for helming records including U2's Europa, as well as albums from artists including Foals and PJ Harvey.
Flood was a friend. We met at the school gates. Our wives were friends from school, and we holidayed and stuff like that. And, it's so great because, we've had so many similar experiences. And anyway, with Flood, I was just like, listen, he's a mate. And I'm like, I need good counsel. So what happened was I wanted to play him the stuff. So, because I like the stuff, the engineer I was working with, my wife, kids like the stuff, the demos. And I played it to him. And after about the fourth song, he turned around and said, do you want me to do this with you? I'm like, well, that's like the dream ticket because you're like my favorite producer, but I'm not going to, I don't want to put pressure on the friendship. So then it's the conversation I like, right, I love that record you made with Alan Moulder and Catherine Marks, Foals, Holy Fire.
That's such a great record.
I love that. And that's how we bonded. That's how it's like, he's still doing it. He's obviously still doing it with Polly Harvey, but like he's doing that big band record. And I'm like, okay, I know how it's done in Radiohead, but I want to know how you do it. So how long is this going to take? How much is this going to cost? And once he told me, it was just like, all right, can we do it like that?
In the sessions, some aspects of recording were harder than others. Singing lead, for example.
That was the hardest bit. I've been singing part-time backing vocals, but I was very lucky getting Flood. He said, "You'll be fine." And I had this feeling that he wasn't just saying that, it wasn't kidology going on here. That was genuine. Now, if it was kidology, it was supreme kidology, because he would say things, "Oh yeah, I did that. I took 6 hours to do that vocal with Nick Cave." And, and you go like, "Oh yeah, of course, he's worked with everybody." He heard something in my voice. He felt that he could get there with my voice.
Enjoy the silence.
Depeche Mode, another major band who had worked with Flood, were also an influence on the record.
We're geeks, we're musical geeks. I'm like, what was it on Violator, what is the sound of that? And he goes, "Oh, that's just the Roland System 700. I'm like, Roland System 700 is this huge kind of analog synthesizer that looks like the patch bay of an old telephone exchange. He's putting all these wires in. He makes incredible sound. And one day, he Shangri-La, he basically said, "I'm going to do a version of this." He did like this version with that, and it sounded like Violator.
There are classic influences on the record, but it's also possible to detect a distinct Radiohead vibe. That's an aspect to his recording that Ed has embraced, having taken advice from his good friend, Johnny Marr, formerly of the Smiths.
Before I made the record, one of my brothers is Johnny Marr, and he said, so one of the mistakes that he felt that he made when he first went out with the Healers, he was scared of sounding like himself. And I think one of the things that people have embraced about what he's done on his last 3 albums is that sounds like Johnny Marr. And I really took that. I was just like, well, I figured that if the rhythm section, you see, with music, if you change the rhythm section, if you change Philip in our band, it wouldn't be Radiohead. The one thing that I did have to let go of, what would the others think about this? Mm. When any of us do solo projects, the way you hear about it is you get a copy from the office. They'll send the vinyl through and they said, "Oh, Johnny wanted you to hear, the soundtrack for There Will Be Blood. Here it is, or here it is if you want it." So we don't really talk. It's a bit like someone said the other day, they were talking to a band about this very thing. And they said, people in bands don't talk about their solo projects because it's a bit like the old girlfriend talking about the new girlfriend.
Yeah. It helps that all the other members of the band find inspiration and creative sustenance through recording solo projects.
We've only made 2 records in the last 10 years. And there's a reason for that, because the inspiration collectively doesn't flow all the time like it was when we were in the momentum of OK Computer, Kid A, Hail to the Thief, In Rainbows. So I think what's important about the external projects is they keep everybody being a musician, being inspired, and hopefully that we can get together at times, at moments when it's genuine. And I think the great thing about Radiohead is we only make records when we really want to. We won't make it, we've always been a little bit contrary like that as well. It's like, well, we can't make it if we don't feel it.
In its right place.
At 52, this debut album has been a long time coming for Ed O'Brien, now rechristened EOB for the record. And now it's coincided with a global pandemic. But Ed says he has no regrets about bringing out an album in the time of the coronavirus.
People have said this, "Oh, you poor thing, you finally got it," and it is what it is. And it's bigger than this record, it's bigger than all of us. And I feel like there was talking, people said, "Oh, do you want to put it back? Do you want to delay it?" It's like, no. I mean, I can't promote it in the usual way, but so what? If people can find some solace or they're moved by it and it can help, if it helps one person, that it's done its job.